Hi guys, trying to record again, and today I figured I'd try to, actually I've been sick, so I haven't been at work today, and I was like contemplating whether or not I should practice. Let me remove this hairbrush. I was like contemplating whether or not to do some Yu-Gi-Oh testing, because I am going to YCS Birmingham, and even though I feel sick, I also feel a bit obligated to do some practicing, and it's not as hard as working, so I figured I'd make a coffee and try to do some testing. And I have this Moomin coffee, like a thermo cup, I guess. It's, even though I'm not going anywhere, it's actually pretty nice because it keeps it warm, and usually can actually take me a while to drink a coffee. So I like just putting it in one of these, and it'll keep it warm for a decently long time. And yeah, so let me just take a sip of it. I'm also trying the sort of more zoomed out camera perspective, because I was thinking for the last video I was doing a deck profile and it didn't really matter as much being able to see the entire playmat. But I'm thinking today, where I'm testing, it makes a lot of sense to be able to see the entire playmat. But I still have this weird tripod in front of me, so it's gonna have to take a bit of time getting used to not being able to like see the field completely, like my phone is in the way. But I think I can manage. And we also have Elvira on the couch, or not the couch, but the blanket. And what I wanted to test today is something, I guess the last thing I tested, and this is all Supreme Darkness White Forest, and this right here is my Supreme Darkness proxy deck. So it's like, yeah, just proxies. And what I mean by proxies is that I just have this printout that I stick in front of another card in the sleeve, and yeah, I just play with that. And sometimes I also just draw it, because I don't have access to a printer. So some of these cards are just like this Gas Angel, just a drawing. And some of them are also real, because I happen to have them. Like, I actually don't have an extra copy of SP Little Knight. I do own 2 copies of Gas Angel, but they're both in my like real deck at the moment. So, and I also have some extra copies. So for the most part, I put real cards in here, but when I don't actually have the real card, actually I do have this in a real copy. Let me just put it in here. I just, yeah, like, this is actually my girlfriend who drew this. I'm really happy about it. So I can do a deck tech of this proxied version at some point, I guess, but I'd rather just wait until Supreme Darkness releases and do a deck tech with, like, a deck profile with all the real cards. And also a lot of stuff in this deck is subject to change. Like, I'm just testing out all sorts of different stuff. Like right now I'm testing out a bow, and also Disparter, and yeah, so still a lot of like things I'm unsure about when it comes to the deck. Even though I feel like I have been like theorizing the Supreme Darkness version for a long time, it's just, I think it's a pretty complicated deck building challenge, and I do feel pretty confident about the main deck, or at least a large bulk of the main deck. I'm not entirely sure whether I'm running like 22 engine cards or 24 engine cards, but I'm pretty sure that it's around there, and I'm pretty sure which of the ratios that I'm, adjusting. In terms of non-engine, I'm still pretty unsure. And last video, the current like non-engine strategy. Also, our washing machine is going crazy right now. I don't know if you can hear it, but my current non-engine strategy that I'm testing out in the main deck is, or not in the main deck, in my real deck, is like a split between hand traps and board breakers. And I do think that's pretty strong, but I have also been, contemplating just going all out board breakers, because that's what I've been doing for the longest time, even when it wasn't, a good strategy. Like in Snake Eyes format, for example, I still just went full on board breakers because I like board breakers a lot more. But in this format, it might actually be somewhat viable to go board breakers. So, I mean, I guess that begs the question, then why am I not just doing it? But it's just also that I have had some good experiences with hand traps recently, and I do think that, specifically Deception of the Sinful Spoils and Diabellstar can actually let you play hand traps in White Forest, because, Deception, it essentially turns a monster into a spell, right? So if you're clogged up with a lot of monsters, you don't have enough spells, stuff like Black Witch and Deception can kind of sort of enable that. I still don't believe that you can run like full on hand traps, like just like 15 monster hand traps and 3 imperms. Like, I don't think you can do that. I think the nightmare scenario of opening 5 monster cards or 4 monster cards in one spell, like, you really don't want to see that. And I think that's just so like I don't actually know how likely it is, but it feels like it happens a lot when you go full hand traps. I have actually tried that a long time ago. Anyway, I'm getting completely sidetracked. This is my Supreme Darkness test deck, and what I wanted to test today was something that I tested last time, just by myself. I didn't record a video, obviously, but it's just Estella combos. And so I feel like I have been focusing a lot on Elzette combos. I feel like I have been focusing a lot on Estella combos because those are the most powerful and sort of, it's just fun to see what can you do with one Estella. But like, I sort of slept on it and I realized that I'm not even sure that I'm playing 3 copies of Estella in Supreme Darkness. I might be, because it's still a starter, but also I wanted to test a bit, how does the Elzette combo look like? And you might say, oh, well, the Elzette combo, that's just that you play Elzette and then you go get Estella and you do the Estella combo. And that's kind of true. Like, that's that will end up being the same as the Estella combo. And so, of course, the problem is that you need spells to send to graveyard. Like, you need one for Elzette, and then you need another one for Estella. That's like the most surface level problem with doing that. The second thing is that, and I talked briefly about this in the last video, is that there's just a ton of hand traps. So going for Elzette into Estella, when you open Elzette, you go Elzette, search Estella, that's just super risky, because if your Estella gets hand trapped, you end up with an Elzette and an Estella on the board, and that actually doesn't really do anything at all. Whereas when you get Sylvie, you can still continue even if the Sylvie gets hand trapped, and you also don't need the extra spell to send to graveyard. So this combo right here is just Elzette and a random spell card or trap card. And right now it's just infinite impermanence. Could be anyone. These combos right here, like when you don't actually draw a test hand, like this is just 2-card combo, are kind of like not that real, in the sense that this will probably never really represent an actual game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Being played with this deck, unless it's like the grind game. Oh, the tripod just fell over. I'm sorry. Okay. But unless it's just like the grind game and you happen to top deck the Elzette, or you get back the Elzette and you can like play, I guess maybe, but even then not really. In reality, these like 1-card or 1.5-card combos just lose to any hand trap, and your opponent will have any hand trap, right? So, you know, even the Estella combo, like you summon Estella, you send infinite impermanence, Estella will get effect failure, and that's it, right? That will happen almost every time. And you know, if then you get Nibiru or something like that. So these are not really, these sort of combos are not really meant to exemplify how you should play the deck, like, but more so sort of a theoretical sort of exploration of how your deck is built. So I see it more as a deck building sort of test, you know, like what can what can an Elzette lead to in this deck? And when you try to do it, is there some weird inefficient steps or steps that sort of don't really add up? You end with an extra body on the board that you don't know what to use for, or you sort of you're missing a body that you really need to go into something that can sort of tell you something about maybe the deck is not built entirely correct. If you're not able to do like the idea is that your opponent, you go fully uninterrupted. Can you do the thing then? And you will probably almost never go fully uninterrupted. And if you do, you won't have 2 cards in hand, you'll have 5 cards in hand, right? But it's just a thought of, it's like a thought experiment maybe, to see if your deck can actually function when it is not interrupted, which is a super weird thing to say, because it's like, obviously your deck should function when not interrupted, right? But these days it's so expected to be interrupted, so you build your deck in sort of expecting to be interrupted. You're not building your deck to create the most amazing end board and to have the most craziest 1-card combos. You build the deck to be resilient to hand traps. And sometimes you just end up not really thinking too much about what happens when you don't get hand trapped. So anyway, that was like 14 minutes of me just talking without ever doing anything or testing anything. But I guess this is my own channel and no one will even watch this video, so I can just do what I want. And it feels pretty cool to say that. So anyway, let's try to do an Elzette combo, and I will say I have some ideas to how to do the Elzette combo. And also I have some things that I want to sort of test out in regards to the Elzette combo. And maybe just a quick disclaimer, because there's just so many ways that you can, so many different kind of spells you can search, right? You can search all the Sinful Spoil spells, or the Asamina cards and the White Forest cards. So I just wanted to show real quick, like, this is not a deck profile by any means, but I just wanted to show what we are trying to search at a really broad level. And it's really just these 2 cards here. So, like, way back when the Supreme Darkness support first got announced, I created some pretty crazy combos that could end on like one Estella could end on like 5 set spell traps, stuff like that. So this is not that at all. I choose these two as my sort of White Forest or Sinful Spoils, or I choose these two at my, I like to call them bricks, right? I choose these two as my searchable spells or traps that are pretty much bricks in the deck. Like, this is not a brick necessarily going first, this is not a brick sometimes when you go second, right? Because it's a quick play, you can use it to break the board. And that's very interesting. I might do a video on this card at some point. But for all intents and purposes, these do not help you play at all on your turn when you're starting. So you pretty much don't want to see these cards. You want to see your starters or your extenders. And you want to search these out as pieces of your end board. So that's our goal, is to... Whoop, I turned over the tripod again. I'm really just having a hard time reaching the playmat when the tripod is in the way, but I think I just need to be more aware of the tripod. Maybe I'll do this so the tripod is a bit more stable. Yeah, that's actually a good idea. Well, you guys can see his feet now. I don't really like that too much, but it's a lot more stable now. It's a lot more stable. I might not just tilt it over as easily. Okay. Anyways, so these are the only two sort of bricks in the deck right now. And that's not a lot. I will say this is like, I'm trying to minimize the bricks in this deck. And these are the only two I'm playing right now. And you can, I am considering playing a third Sinful Spoil spell. There's also a ton of other options you can go for. And I would love to do a video on that at some point. Just ranting about all these different options. Don't know really what to call them. Maybe just call them like searchable spell traps. But for now, it's just these two. And we will actually see that we might even not even get to this woes. I'll try to show the line where you search woes first, and I'll try to sort of talk about why I don't necessarily think that that is so powerful, just in terms of raw import. And then I'll show the line where you don't search this. But I don't have them totally memorized, so I'll just start out here. And I think what I'm going to do is that I'm moving the deck up here so that this down here will be the graveyard, just because I feel like with this tripod is in front of me, I don't maybe not have the reach quite as well. Yeah, so okay, let's just start. So you start just by activating Elzette, and you send the Infinite Impermanence of Gust, and you summon her onto the field, and you get to search a White Forest monster. And what you're searching here, like in this example, we don't actually have any other spells or traps to send, so we can't really go for the Estella here. And that is just something I did to sort of prevent myself from just searching Estella and doing the Estella combo. And that is also, I guess, this combo will be weaker than the Estella combo, obviously. Estella is the better starter when going uninterrupted. And the idea is that maybe if I'm not playing 3 copies of Estella, I want to see, well, what can I actually end on without sort of starting with Estella. And so we normally summon Sylvie. And here we can, so the next goal here, and we get Sylvie's unsummon effect to search. And the next goal we have is to get to our Asamina Elzette, because first of all, we need the extra level 2 body to make the bell, and we have just used our normal summon, so we can't normal summon Estella. And then second of all, of course, we need Assamine Elzette to synchro summon with to be able to go into our sinful spot stuff. So we can, with Sylvie, we can either search for Tails or Woes. That's actually the only 2 targets right now in the deck. And sort of if we search Woes, then we make Risiela send a Woes for cast, and we'll search Assamine Elzette with Risiela. And if we go for Tails, we can make Risiela and send the Tails for cost, and then search Woes with Risiela and search Assamine Elzette with the Tails. I usually like, so of course, if your opponent has draw, right, well, they would have already used it, so it doesn't really matter anyway. But it's just usually people tell you to search for Woes, because if you get drawn, then at least you have the Woes, right? But we are sort of not assuming that our opponent has any interact. Like this is just completely uninterrupted. I do... It's not that it matters a ton, I think, to get the Tails into rotation, but I will say that if you search the tail, you will get it into rotation, meaning that it will be in your graveyard, and maybe I'm just valuing that a bit more because I'm thinking of Celine, and in my current Rage of the Abyss Wild Forest deck, I'm playing Celine, so I always search this Tails instead of searching a Wild Forest monster directly with Risiela. Because I want this in the graveyard to up my spell count for Celine. But also, if you search Tails and you search Woes or Risiela, you do get an extra send, right? Because you have this card in your hand that you can use to send to the graveyard for something else, like another White Forest monster. And I don't think it will matter in this combo, but in general, you will have obviously more than just Elzette Imperm, and so you probably will be somewhat interested in having the extra spell and trap send resource in your hand. So that's why that I like to sort of just search Tails with Sylvie's normal summon effect, and then say Sylvie and I'll just put my hand down here, I guess. Then just say Sylvie and Elzette to go into Risiela. And then Risiela on summon effect, send the Tails for cast. And we add the Woes, and then we have a Chainlink 1 Tails to set itself back. And we activate it, and we go search for our Assamine Elzette. And we play Assamine Elzette, and we just pretty simply just summon her and use her as synchro material to go into Diabell. And sort of another sort of annoying thing here is that if we look at our graveyard, we don't have anything particularly interesting to get back with Diabell. And that's sort of the issue or the downside to making her really early. But at the same time, like, you would ideally love to add back a Sinful Spoil spell or an Assamina spell. Because the Sinful Spoil spells, you can use them for the Hallowed Assamina to make more fusion plays. The issue is that you have to use Assamina Elzette as a fusion material, synchro material, to get to the Assamina engine, and the only real synchro you can make in this combo is Diabell. You could technically make another level 8 here. You could make Visa Samritara if you wanted a stronger end board, but then you have to run the Vanadium Reframing in the deck, which I'm just not interested in. Not interested in more bricks. So there's no real other level 8 that is particularly good to make here, and then go into Diabell later. Also, it's kind of hard to go into Diabell later because you need a synchro tuner for her to get her graveyard add back, and then the only really good tuner synchros that you can make are the White Forest ones, so you need to make another White Forest tuner synchro, or like a Coral Dragon or something like that, and then go into her, and we'll kind of see that that's not really resources to do that, and maybe we could modify the deck if there, like, at some point came out a really good level 8 synchro, so that you could make that and then make Diabell also a bit later. And I will say Visa Retire is a very good synchro going first, level 8 synchro, but obviously we're not really trying to make a strong inboard here. Like I mentioned earlier, we are trying to build the deck in a way that we are resilient to hand traps. And also just like this is all very theoretical. In practice, you just want to make the Diabell as soon as possible. Like you want to get this card on your field. It's like your strongest standboard piece, or one of your strongest standboard pieces. And you want to ensure that you're getting this. If you make a Visa Retire here, then maybe even if your combo might be able to somehow later go into the Diabell, it's a gamble, right? You're essentially prioritizing Visa Retire over Diabell, and that can just be very dangerous, and you might not even get to Diabell. So I just like the idea of making Diabell immediately, but unfortunately that also means that we do sort of not have anything amazing to add back. You can also add the tails back, keep it in your hand, then during the opponent's turn use it as a fodder for Diabell. Maybe if you feel like you need the extra resource, you'll do that. But anyways, of course also you get the Elzette effect to search a Sinful Spoils spell or trap, or just a Sinful Spoils card actually. And you're obviously going to chain link it, so you say chain link 1 Elzette to search, and chain link 2 Diabell to add back, targeting the infinite impermanence here, just so that you chain block. And then I know this is sort of getting really long-winded, but I kind of like it, so don't even know why I'm making excuses in my own video. But you're searching, so there's basically two things you can search here with Elzette that I think makes sense. Because obviously you're just trying to get to the Asamina fusions, right? And there's actually two ways of doing that. You can search Wanted and use Wanted, get Diabell Star, summon Diabell Star, set Deception, standard ABC line. I don't know why I said ABC, but just the normal thing you'd expect. You can also just search Deception of Sinful Spoils directly. And what that will allow you to do is that when you use Deception and you add Hallowed, you use Hallowed, you summon Muricielago, then you add the Wanted with the Muricielago. And then you can actually add back the Hallowed and use it, and then chain the Wanted and use it as a material to make Ilia Sylvia. And in that way, you sort of get both Muricielago and Ilia Sylvia without having to play any other Sinful Spoils spells or traps that you have to send other than these two. So it's just a very minimalistic way of doing it, and I think that it can actually be pretty decent in some variants of the deck. But obviously here, the only monster we have on our field to tribute is Diabell, so maybe adding Deception seems a bit weird. Could actually use our graveyard effect of Sylvie, shuffling back the Risiella, get the body on the floor, on the board, and then tribute it for Deception here. And maybe I'll try a test hand with that. The issue is that that will sort of prevent us from making another synchro play, right? Because in this combo here where we're searching woes, we don't actually have access to Rusia. And so this add back of Sylvie by shuffling back Risiella is sort of the only other time we get to see a tuner. So we have to think a bit about, do we want to make any other synchro plays? If we don't, then we can totally just summon back to Sylvie and attribute it for cause for deception. But if we do, then we want to save the Sylvie. And whether or not we want to do that or not, it depends on whether we want to use our diabell. Depends on whether or not we're trying to make Saint Asamina, essentially. Because Saint Asamina requires a level 6 and higher fusion monster. That's going to be Risiolago most of the time. And it requires a level 6 or higher synchro monster. And that can be diabell, so you can use diabell as synchro material. And we will actually, I can show you that you can actually get diabell back straight away after summoning Saint Asamina. But sometimes maybe we would like to use another synchro as a material to make Saint Asamina. And other times you don't have access to the fusion spell. And so if you don't have the fusion spell, you can't actually make Saint Asamina unless you make Mighty Mad Dragon. And that is sort of another, the only non-white forest to level 6 synchro I'm considering playing, because Mighty Mad Dragon is level 6 and higher, and it actually has an ignition effect that can fusion with monsters on your field. And I know this is used to make Dragoon, and it is used like as a fusion substitute to make some weird fusions. You can also just use it as this generic level 6 or higher synchro monster, and you can perform the fusion summon without having the fusion spell if you go into this. So that's why I think that Mighty Mud Dragon might actually have a place in this deck, and why you maybe would want to save Sylvie in the graveyard in order to go into Mighty Mud Dragon later. However, if we want to do that, we have to think about how we get access to the level 2 body, right? Because we can get Sylvie back right now, but we don't necessarily have a clean way to get a level 2 body right here. Like, we don't have actually access to Estella in this combo either. And that is, of course, because we chose to search the woes. So we have to sort of get back one of these two monsters from the graveyard, and that is maybe a bit tough to do with this limited number of cards. There is Crush Sheep, which can do it. Like, you can, when a monster is special summoned to one of the zones that this card points to, if there is a fusion monster to a zone this card points to, and that will most of the time be Risiolago sitting here, you can summon back a level 4 low monster from your graveyard. So that can get this back, right? But this requires 2 monsters with different names. And now we're just kind of, again, back to the issue of we don't actually have a lot of monsters here. We only have Diabell. And we could get back to Sylvie as a body, but that would sort of defeat the purpose, because we needed the Sylvie in the first place to make Mighty Mud Dragon. So I don't think that sort of you can actually go for another synchro play with this line specifically where you search woes. And so I do feel that it is valid, or valid is a weird word, right? But you can definitely maybe use Sylvia, shuffle it back, summon itself, because I don't really see us getting to another level 2, but maybe there will be some surprises here. I am going to try to do the standard thing that I have sort of done in the past, and that is not searching Deception. There was a very long-winded discussion of whether or not you could search Wanted or Deception, and I'm just going to search Wanted here, because that is sort of the quote-unquote normal thing to search, right? You just search for Wanted, you you get your Black Witch, and then you use the card you added back with Diabell to summon the Black Witch, and you sort of set your Deception. And you activate your Deception, and here you can again choose to summon back Sylvie and tribute that instead of Diabellstar. The thing is, Diabellstar is not really useful as a material for going into anything in this deck. Like, there's no specific fusions or synchros that need Diabellstar or can even make use of Diabellstar, so she will often be used as just a generic link fodder. There is also just some merit to keeping her around, honestly, because you can use her on the opponent's turn with the fusion spell to make a Guardian Chimera, and her effect when being sent to the graveyard during your opponent's turn will trigger, and you will get her back, and you'll actually get a bunch of value. So I don't think it's actually that unreasonable to just end on this Diabellstar, but I will say that that is probably something you will consider if you're have a lot of other resources. Right now we're really not having a lot of bodies, so I will just go ahead and tribute her off and search for the Hallowed Asamina. Then we'll just use the Hallowed Asamina and reveal the Murcielago. And we'll send the Deception for cast, or not for cast, but as part of the resolution. And we'll make the Murcielago. And now we get to search off of Murcielago. And here we obviously get to search any Asamina card or Sinful Spoils card. And so there's obviously a ton of different things you can search here. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to search Asamina Elzette, since we already summoned her with her own effect, so she'll just be stuck in our hand. That's the only Asamina card I'm playing in the deck right now. You can obviously search the busted trap card. Again, trying to minimize the bricks. And also, if you search the trap card, I can't remember the name, but if you search the trap card here, you would not really have a ton of ways to extend your plays, right? Because you kind of do want an extra Sinful Spoils card or is it actually just spell or card? It is just Sinful Spoils cards. So you kind of want to search another Sinful Spoils card and not an Asamina card, unless that Asamina card is counted as Sinful Spoils card. Looking at you, Queen of Asamina. So you could add Queen of Asamina here, I guess. But we are just interested in trying to further strengthen our endboard. So there's actually not any options left in this current build. Like, the only thing we can really search is the fusion spell, because we have wanted, could technically search for another copy of Deception. I did mention that in my last video, that is actually also something you can do, but that will sort of not really get you any further either, because then you get your Ilia Sylvia, but you won't really have any further plays. So your endboard would be, summon back to Sylvie, maybe like Sylvie and Murcielago into a IP Masquerina, and then you'll have your Ilia Sylvia, and you would set your woes, and that would be maybe just the current Rage of the Abyss endboard, which is still pretty good. But if we search this, the main thing we can do is that we can activate Hallowed Asamina, and we can chain the fusion spell here, and we can make Saint Asamina. And because we have a level 6 high fusion, level 6 high synchro. And so if we do that, we take these two, use them as material. And here I just kind of always really want to put the Saint Asamina in the extra monster zone, because this deck can clog up a bit, and Saint Asmina is a card that can just hang around for a while. So sometimes I do want to put her there, also just because I think it's cool, I guess, but maybe putting it here is sort of the most rational thing to do. This way, if we do make Crush Sheep, there will be a fusion monster pointed that one of its arrows will point to. And so if we summon another monster in the other zone it points to, we will get the summon back. But I don't know if that will be relevant this combo. Just talking like generically, I think here is a good place to summon Saint Asmina. Or if you're totally sure you won't make any links, you can place it in the extra master zone. Anyway, oh my, I'm having a ton of fun with this video right now. So we summon our Saint Asmina, and we will get our Hallowed Asmina resolving as well. So we send this to the graveyard, and we'll make the Hallowed, and or not the Hallowed, but Ilia Sylvia. And where you want to place this is definitely not here. And I think any other zone is fine. Assuming that you make Crush Sheep here in this extra master zone. I usually like to place it over here, just so it's pretty close to the graveyard, so you can just easily go Tribute. And also, this is sort of the least used zone in the combos, I feel like. So I'm pretty sure that I will not be touching this card once I summon it for the rest of the turn. It will just stay there here as part of my end board. So I'm fine with just setting it in one of the zones that I know that I probably won't be using for the combo. Anyway, so now the chain has resolved, and we can use Saint Asmina's effect. And this is how we get back Diabell. We actually make more Regina. And again, maybe you put her here. And she has an ignition effect. It says that she can just summon, once per turn, summon an illusion back from the graveyard. So that's just what we do. Summon back the Diabell. And I guess in this combo we're not really going into Crush Sheep. We could use more Regina maybe, but I don't think we'll get too much merit out of going into Crush Sheep right now. And then we have the Woes set as sort of our input piece. And we have our Wanted. We can activate in the graveyard, shuffle back, probably the fusion spell to get a draw. And that is about it. And we did not use her Sylvie summon back. I will say that actually that's sometimes pretty nice, because that means that our Woes is live no matter what happens to the Diabell. Because normally when you have Woes set and don't have any level 4 tuner or no level 2 body on the field, can't actually use Woes to synchro summon into anything. So you're just waiting to use Diabell first, and you need to get to trigger Estella in the graveyard so that Estella comes back, and then you can use her, and then you can activate Woes and use her and whatever you summon from the deck to make a synchro. But in this version we don't actually have Elzette or Estella in rotation, so there won't be any level 2 bodies summoned back on our opponent's turn. And so it is pretty nice to have this. It's actually pretty crucial to have this Sylvie in the graveyard so that we can actually use the Woes. And yeah, so that's the sort of, I think this is a pretty bad end board up, honestly. That is all like if you chose to search the Woes with Riziella, right? So if you search the Woes, I don't think there's too many ways of modifying this combo. You could definitely have gone into Crush Sheep, and you could have maybe you could for example use Okay, Elvira just got a huge shock and knocked over the coffee cup. I think I will turn off this video and clean this up and make a part 2. Okay, so I am back, and this creature just decided to knock coffee all over my playmat. I think she was dreaming or something. I don't know what she was. Nothing really happened that could scare her, so I think maybe she was just sleeping. But I hung the playmat to dry, and I have gotten a new playmat, not as fancy, just a plain black playmat. Actually, I will need a field center for this. So let me just get this. And it will also actually be an opportunity for me to learn how to stitch 2 recordings together, because I'll just take the previous recording and stitch it onto this and make it one long, completely massively boring video. Okay, so I'm putting the deck up here again, just so I can use my graveyard down here. I think maybe I should do like this. I think I have a nice view right here. Okay, so we ended up with a Saint Asamina here, or maybe like this, yeah, and a Moragina here, and our Derbel in the middle zone, and our Ilias there in our further zone, and we have our Woe set, we have our Sylvie, Shuffleback, Rishiela summon in the graveyard. We have our Wounded as well that we can activate for a draw, and I'm not really gonna do that. It's not really relevant to the combo. So I was talking about how I feel like this is actually not a very good import. Like, first of all, this might be a bit pedantic, but you don't really have anything nice to send to the graveyard for cost with Diabell. And I know that this is sort of a 2-card, 2-hand opening. So obviously in like a real game, you would have something probably. But I do think that it's sort of, it's not the prettiest when you don't actually have anything convenient to send for Diabell. And then also Moragina, her pop effect, which can pop 2 cards on the field with as Sinful Spoils or Asamina, a card or effect is activated. That will only really be live when we use the Alias of the Omni, because that's the only real Sinful Spoils or Asamina effect that we can use during our opponent's turn, like as a quick effect. So we have to line it up very weirdly, where we let them play and summon some cards, and then we use the Omnis so that we can pop something with this, and the woes, and we will all have to do this before we activate the woes, because currently there is no real space to have 2 monsters to use the woes. So we have to get rid of this first, and it's just not very elegant and not very nice. It's also very vulnerable to like board wipes, right? Because everything is just on the field, right? There's no real, I guess the Sylvie is in the graveyard, so our Woes is maybe, that's a bit layered, but it's not really, I think layering is when it has to be done in this specific order for my part or for the player's part is not that good. Like, it's still pretty good to have layered interaction, but when I have to use this first and this has to be used when they have something on the board that can pop with this, and then so it becomes very predictable basically for the opponent, and I have very little control over it. It's mostly in my opponent's hands actually, because if they can see what I'm seeing here, then they can play in a way that is the smartest, and I cannot really do too much about it because I'm forced to use my interaction in this very particular order. So yeah, so that was searching woes, and I don't think there's, I don't know, maybe if we searched deception instead of wanted, we'd have something different. Actually, let's try that. So here, I'm putting all these back. I'm saying we did not search this yet. We haven't summoned Murcielago. We have not searched the... we searched deception, but then we cannot get to this. Then our infinite impermanence is still in our hand. We have sort of... we have gone into Diabel, right? Yes, because otherwise we would not be able to search the deception. So let me just get the Diabel back. And Elvira is super annoying right now. Honestly, I like her tail. Come on. You don't have to do this. You don't have to be here. There's so many other places you can be that is not annoying to you. I think maybe she adapted a bit, but okay. So we are doing a rollback. We are searching the deception instead of the wanted. Let's try that. And oh, let me not put the Murcielago into our main deck. It's definitely in our extra deck. And so we use deception. And then I don't think it would make sense to tribute the Diabel here. So let's go for the summon back, you know, with in mind that this will make the woes a bit weaker actually. But still, let's try. We summon back this. We go for deception, tribute, add the hallowed. We say hallowed, and we summon out the Murcielago. And this is so annoying. Okay, whatever. And send these two, and then we get the the Murcielago search that you can't even see because her tail is over the card, and we get the wanted. And so here, like, what is the point of doing this instead? In searching the deception instead of searching the wanted? Well, the point is that now we say hallowed Asamina and we shuffle back our Asamina set, because hallowed Asamina can shuffle back any Asamina monster. Doesn't have to be the extra deck ones. So we shuffle it back and we get back the hallowed Asamina. We activate the hallowed and we chain the wanted. And then we search our Diabel Star. And then we reveal our Ilia Sylvia. Here, do you have to have your tail in on my playmat right now? Ready? Is that like, does it make you happy at all? Because it seems like it's just annoying you. Yeah, she'll leave when she have had enough. But I'm not gonna leave. I'm not gonna bow down to her tyranny. We summoned the Ilia Sylvia here. And now we have sort of the same position as before, except we did not have the fusion summon here. So you notice before we searched the fusion spell and we changed the fusion spell to the hallowed Asamina and we fusioned these two for the Saint Asamina. Now we are in sort of a similar position. We still have these on the board and we can instead say summon Diabel Star and we can set the fusion spell so that we have it on our opponent's turn. So for example, we can say hallowed or just summon Diabel here and search out. Is that in my grave actually? No, it is not. There it is. And now we have, and I guess the important note is this will be set, obviously, so we cannot use it this turn. And we'll set the words as well. So this endboard is sort of, you notice the only thing we did differently was that we searched deception instead of wanted with the Assamina Elzette. And we get this sort of permutation of almost the same endboard, but not really. This time we hadn't used the fusion spell. And we instead can use it on our opponent's turn. And we'll use, like, probably we can use these two to make Saint Assamina, right? And then you can use Saint Assamina, because her effect to summon an Assamina monster from the deck is quick effect. So you can also summon more Regina on your opponent's turn. So you fusion summon the Saint Assamina, and then you can quick effect summon the more Regina. We're still in the same position where this is our only real sinful spoils or Assamina effect that we can actively trigger in order to trigger the more Regina to pop 2 cards. However, we do also have the Diabellstar on the field that also can trigger. So if we can somehow send that to the graveyard intentionally, then we could also, that could be another way to trigger the more Regina, right? So just running through the interruptions here is that we obviously have the Omni, but we are looking to use the Diabell pretty early on, because we don't actually, we can't actually really fusion her away or use her as a material before we have used her effect. I guess at least not, that would not be super efficient use of our interruptions. So we and again we still have the issue with that we don't really have anything nice to send here for casters to use Diabell. We also have the issue that our woes is just kind of dead as right now. Like, I hate to say it, but there's not even really space. Like, we could, of course, if we knew that our combo did not have anything to do with links, we could have just summoned the Ilias Viera here, right? And I actually don't think that's super crazy thing to do, because we can then we then have space to have 2 monsters here that can be used for woes to synchro summon on your opponent's turn. Of course, we could also have used these 2 as link material to go into IP Masquerena or something like that. Then your fusion spell is sort of reserved to being used as a guiding chimera, probably. Which is still very good, right? But it's obviously not as... it's still super strong, because guiding chimera is pops and draws. And I guess it will depend a lot of on the matchup, because Saint Assamina can obviously cripple some specific decks that target their own things a lot, need to target their own things a lot. And, you know, you still, if you sequence it correctly, can use more Regina to get 2 pops as well, right? So if everything works out quite nicely, the Saint Assamina is technically, I feel like, a bit stronger to fusion summon, because you get the floodgate effect of Saint Assamina and the 2 pops from more Regina, and, you know, it's also the case that your opponent will take any battle damage that you would have taken. Like, Saint Assamina also has that effect, so it also kind of ensures that you will not die as long as Saint Assamina is on the field and she is untargetable, right? So in general, I feel like Saint Assamina is the stronger card to make, But of course, if your opponent is not at all weak to the floodgate effect of Saint Asmina, then you could make these two into sort of an IIP maybe, and you can go for a Guardian Chimera play instead. Could also just go for a Guardian Chimera play right here, right? The only thing is that we have no monster in the hand to use for the Guardian Chimera. We need to use the Diabell first, then summon out our Book of Eclipse, you know. So let's just say that we use the Diabell, and let's just say that we have something that we can use as a material to send to the grave other than these two. So that we can use the Diabell to summon here, and then we'll get the book, and you'll get the add back of Elzette. And that is sort of the monster in your hand for Guardian Chimera. So here, I guess you could also just make Saint Asmina with these two, right? I didn't really think about that, but that would also be pretty cool. That would also, like, if they try to sort of negate this with an on-the-field negate effect, you can chain this, dodge it. And then, oh yeah. Okay, so if we use Diabell here, and we get to add back the set, we get our book here, then we use the, this fusion spell here. We fusion these two, and we make Saint Asmina here. And remember, the Saint Asmina effect to summon an Asmina monster is not like an unsummon effect or something. It's just a quick effect to turn its fusions on, so we can totally wait to activate Saint Asmina. And then here in this position, we can actually use Sylvie again with this card here, with Silvera. Shuffle back and summon. And now we do have our book. And now when we activate the book here, or not the book, sorry, the woes, I really think that, and this is one of the main reasons that I still think woes is the strongest endboard piece in White Forest in terms of spells and traps that you could search. Like we talked about that before, right? That specific category of cards where there's a bunch of one-offs you can play. Because you can summon Asmina Elzette, right? And check this out. You summon her from the deck, and you perform a synchro summon. Like, for example, for another, let's just say another book, right? The second book. And now Asmina Elzette will trigger in the graveyard to search his info spell because it was used as synchro material. And, you know, if we have used Saint Asmina's effect, right, we couldn't really have summoned it before. Like, we would be clogged up, right? So we would have used this to get more space, or this Diabell Star maybe should not be part of the end board, or something like that. But then if we had this, then Asmina Elzette, the trigger in the graveyard to search his info spell would also trigger this. So you'd have like Chainlink 1, this to book everything, Chainlink 2 Asmina to search his info spell, and then a trigger on the Moragina to pop 2 cards on the field. But let's say that we did not actually have the space for the Moragina because we didn't in this part of the combo. We would have to tribute this off or somehow get rid of this, which maybe this should not be part of the import. Maybe we should have gone into a link instead. I don't know. But we can search here. And so in this example here, we, like in this deck, right, we have very limited options because I'm not playing a ton of different samples as well. We have the, you know, the wanted and the deception, basically. You know, the fusion spell is in the graveyard. And so here we would be probably interested in searching the wanted for follow-up, or deception is also pretty strong for follow-up, to be honest. But so you'd search one of these, and the main thing I wanted to mention with that is that you could also, right here, play one of the other Sinful Spoils spells. I'm thinking about, in particular, the trap cards. The trap cards, some of them have this effect where if it's in the graveyard, you can set it to the field, but banish it when it leaves the field. And because it's a trap card, of course, if it's in the graveyard, it's a quick effect to do that. So if you had, for example, the Moragina here, and you searched, let's pretend that this wanted is like the Sinful Spoils, Morian, I think. Sinful Spoils of Slumber, right? I think. And so you would then maybe, you could send that for cost, for example, for the Diabell Star, the Diabell, or if you had some way of forcing the Diabell Star to leave the field, you could send the trap, the Sinful Spoils trap you added with Asamina Elzette on your opponent's turn to the graveyard, and then in the graveyard, that trap would be a quick effect that you could trigger whenever you want, or you could activate whenever you want to trigger Moragina to pop 2. And that's pretty good, right? You could also add the Sorceress of the White Forest, or not of the White Forest, of Sinful Spoils, right? The sort of old Sinful Spoils card that came out in Infinite Forbidden. Actually, let me just show it to you instead. Whoa. Instead of just talking about all these cards. Let me just get my binder. Like, right here. So this card, Sorceress of the Sinful Spoils, and that card does not have a graveyard quick effect or anything like that, but it has the White Forest clause, where if it's sent to the graveyard to activate a monster effect, you can set it to your field. And you could maybe do the same kind of trick here with adding this on your opponent's turn with Asamina Elzette when you use it for woes. Then, and you'd have to sequence your Diabell after this, right? So in our example, we couldn't really. We had to sequence the Diabell first in order to be able to make our woes activatable. Or not activatable, but make it able to synchro summon. But maybe in a different sort of hand, you could sequence it in the way that you would use your woes first, and then you'd add this Sorceress, for example, or the other card I was talking about. Let me find it. This one up here, Sinful Spoils of Slumber. Like, that is the one with the quick effect to set itself back. And I also think that this, I can't really show it, but the Subdual one, this one also has this quick effect in the graveyard. Actually, I think all of them do have, but it's just that some of them are more conditional than the other. But in general, this idea, I'm guessing what I'm ranting on about here is this idea of adding, using woes, summoning Asamina Elzette from the deck, using it to synchro summon, adding something that you then send off Diabell in order to trigger the Moragina, or just for follow-up or stuff like that, or just to get material here. You see, in this combo we did not actually have anything to send for cost for Diabell, so I kind of assumed that we have an extra card in hand, an extra spell trap we could send. But maybe if we were able to sequence this differently, and maybe we might have been able to in some way I didn't really calculate, then the Asamina Elzette add back could provide us with that material that we need to activate the Diabell. So yeah, so that's just, I guess, a little play out of how this sort of board let's go back to the end board. It was maybe a bit unassuming of an end board, you could maybe say. You know, this right here maybe does not look crazy, right? The murcielago just really chilling. The diables are chilling in this true sense of the word. I don't know if that should actually have been on the end field. It is kind of nice to activate it on your opponent's turn, you know, if it's got sent to the graveyard, but we do lack sort of a nice way of sending it to the graveyard. You could use more Regina and pop her and your opponent card. I don't know if that is like just maybe a bit forced, like really looking for some like natural way to have her sent to the graveyard. Ideally would like to use her as a fusion material, so you could maybe make Guardian Chimera, but I don't know, I feel like Saint Asmina into more Regina line is a bit stronger. Yeah, I don't know. I don't actually really know how to make totally good use of that diabell. And also, if we use these two to make like a link monster, then we are kind of giving up on the whole Saint Asamina thing, right? Because then we'd have to use Elias and Vera as a level 6 or higher fusion instead, and that just does not really make sense. Then we'd use this to make Guardian Chimera, but then Diabellstar would not be on the field. She would be used for link material anyway, so it doesn't really make sense. Then we don't get to use Laser effect on the opponent's turn anyway. Yeah, so I don't really know about that part of the line, but that was the whole, okay, so that was that was only the part where we searched woes, right? So that was the Elzette. Let me just clean this up and we can sort of make some conclusions, I guess, about the whole thing, because I've been talking for a long time and it was like a deep dive. I hope you guys are okay with sort of this very detailed look, or I don't know if you think it's detailed or not. This was the Elzette, one card in quotations, because you do need something to send. So I'm calling maybe, I think people call that a 1.5 card combo. You needed this card or a send. It was the Asamina, the Elzette 1.5 combo where you choose to search woes, and in a deck where we are only playing woes and the fusion spell as our sort of one-off search targets. And I think it went pretty well. It's obviously maybe not, it obviously dies to one hand trap, obviously is weak to Nibiru, even though we set up an Omni, right? But they can just use the Nibiru beforehand. We did not make, we tried making Saint Asamina on our opponent's turn, on our own turn to begin with, and found out that that was actually not really resulting in a super nice end board. It was sort of very tacky, or sort of very, had to be, your interruptions had to be layered in a very specific manner, sequenced in a very specific manner, and that it's usually a very bad end board because it makes it very predictable and easy to play through. Then we tried the technology of instead of searching wanted with Asamina instead, we searched deception. And so, you know, I think maybe it's just me, but my natural instinct is just to search of let me put Asamina instead has to showcase it. My natural instinct is just to search of the wanted, because the wanted gets the deception, right? It's just a natural way of doing it. And I will also say that the wanted into Diabellstar, into set deception, it is weaker into stuff like Imperm and effect Vela, but you do also get, you do get the wanted in the graveyard if you sort of get. I guess if your Divesta gets interrupted, you will never get to the second Sinful spell, and you can't actually use your wanted to draw a card. So maybe it is just better to go directly for the deception instead of going directly for the wanted. And in that way, because the deception is only really weak to Ash, right? Like it can get ashed and you'll get stopped. But your wanted is weak to Ash. It's also weak to effect Vela and impermanence. And so I think there's a bigger likelihood of them not having the Ash than them not having an infinite impermanence and Vela and or an Ash. And then I guess the only downside is that you do have to sort of tribute upfront for this, and whereas with this you can sort of get still, even if Diabellstar gets in trouble, you still have your Diabellstar on the field, right? So I don't know, but I feel like in this combo, in this situation, it worked out really nicely to search the deception first, and then using the wanted as a send for Hallowed Asmina's second activation to make Ilia Sylvia instead of using the fusion spell, and then setting the fusion spell with Diabellstar, the Black Witch. I think maybe I did also want, there's like a whole other part of this that has to do with not searching the woes of Elzette. Like, if this is not the card we search, with where I have actually, the other day I did actually try doing that, and instead, you might not believe it, but I searched Estella instead of woes, and that actually also leads to a very different combo, but also I feel like equally potent combo. Maybe not. Maybe we'll have to investigate it together, because you get a lot more bodies with Estella, and so you can make a lot of fancy link plays, and you can sort of make a more impressive looking end board. But then again, maybe the layered version with woes, maybe the more sort of meek, unassuming version is actually sometimes the better version. Maybe the simpler version is the better version. I don't know. Woes is a super strong card, Just the whole thing of summoning Asmina Elzette from the deck, using it as a synchro material, gives you, like, not only is that an interruption, right? You make the book. It's also a follow-up in terms of a simple spell. So it's like the best of both worlds, right? So maybe the woes is the better thing to search, but I do also think adding Estella is a super interesting option. And maybe for the next video, that is what I will be showcasing or testing, just sort of live like I did here. Sort of like half prepared, where I have done a bit of testing myself, but I'm not like, haven't solved the combo. And I will also say that maybe as a little sneak peek that this combo with searching Estella instead of woes with the Elzette 1.5 card combo, it did really make me think of one particular card. Let's see if I can find it. Here, the Cartesia, because when you do the Elzette combo this way and you search Sylvia and you normal summon her, it's maybe not totally obvious or needed that when you get your Estella, that what you summon with Estella will be Rusia, right? That's sort of the normal thing to do. You have Sylvie, you have gotten your Sylvie effect, you looking for another spellcaster tuner to summon with Estella, and you're summoning a Rusia, right, to get the other White Forest name in rotation. But this is also a target that you can summon with Estella, and she does have an effect that she can fusion summon, and it's a quick effect. It has to be a level 8 or higher fusion monster, so we are only really looking at Saint Asamina, because Guardian Chimera needs to be summoned by a spell, right? So it doesn't make sense to make Guardian Chimera with Cartesia, but this could be a way to make Asamina, Saint Asamina on our opponent's turn without using the fusion spell and having our fusion spell for the Guardian Chimera. So we might be able to get both, which just sounds really cool. And in addition, I don't think that this is necessarily a bad card in the deck. Just a normal summon, a level 4 tuner, isn't as bad as it sounds, because we now have a lot more level 2 extenders. Like, we have our Asamina Elzette, or sorry, our normal Elzette, of course, we can summon and use these two to synchronize Orisia. But we also just have our Asamina Elzette, right? So if you play multiple copies of Asamina Elzette, drawing these like this card was so bad to normal summon beforehand, right? Because it doesn't really do anything. But with now we have a lot more extenders, and just seeing this as your normal summon might not be that bad, but I don't know. I'm rambling. I think that this card is super interesting. I think the combo where we are searching, instead of Woes, searching Estella, I would really love to show that to you guys. But I feel like this video has been pretty long as is, and we only covered the part where we searched Woes, or the lines where we searched Woes. So I think I'm gonna stop it and have this be the next part of the combo.